tame. If you ever need to come into the city and stay, I would highly recommend this one. And I would just like to say hello to Vita and everyone else that we've met over the numerous occasions you've been with us as part of our vertical events. It's always interesting to learn from our investment community, and I'm a bit miffed. I didn't actually say anything about Findy's sharp trajectory since last they were here, but Vita did remind me they went from 40 cents to $4 in the last 12 months, so that was a little bit disappointing for me. Thank you so much. You never know where you're going to get your next 10-bagger though, and it may be at the bottom of a little plant known as kava. What do you know about kava? You know it comes from Fiji? We're about to learn one heck of a lot more about it, and I'd like to introduce you to a fellow called Anthony Noble, Dr. Anthony Noble. No, let's come on up here, Anthony, and have a sit up with us. He's the Managing Director and CEO of the Karma Co. This is an interesting little beverage that his company has come up with. I reckon, Anthony, I'm just going to let you launch right into it. You've got 15 minutes. Do your best. Impress us. Tell us all about the Karma Co and why we should be part of it. Would you please make him very welcome, everyone?
Thanks, Christina. Hi, thanks very much. We're the Karma Co. We used to be called Fiji Kava, but about 2 years ago we rebranded the business to be the Karma Co, and that's been part of a transformation, which has really been a digital transformation of the business that's come at two ends of our value chain, both in the way that we sell things and in the way that we do things from a supply chain perspective in Fiji. Am I controlling?
Yeah. Look at that. Up on the left hand.
No.
I was making sure no one else stole it, so I held it safely and securely.
There you go. Beautiful. So our mission is to be the most dominant kava company in the world, basically. This is a psychoactive plant. People call kava the sober psychedelic, so it's very much linked to people who are giving up alcohol or wanting an alternative, a healthier alternative to alcohol. And our mission is really to produce a very high quality product. So it's a product made in the Pacific Islands. So quality is critical to what we do. We're regulated as a dietary supplement at pharmaceutical standards by the FDA, the TGA here in Australia. So we have to have a very high quality product to be able to commercialize that. And it's really been a journey for us about taking the business from where it was 3 years ago as a business very much linked to Chemist Warehouse, with some challenges around that particular channel, the positioning of the products, into a business that can have both a therapeutic product as well as a product that has some really great recreational benefits, and bringing the business into a functional beverage type of business. So almost taking, and this is a pun intended, taking kava back to its roots as a recreational drink, but also keeping that very high quality and health focus to the product and its benefits. So the benefits of the product really are around sleep and anxiety. Everybody knows that stress is a massive problem for people all around the world, particularly in the Western world. And stress at its worst case becomes anxiety. Anxiety is the biggest psychological issue that people face all around the world, particularly in the Western world, Australia, China as well. And there's a very strong linkage between anxiety and stress and the inability to sleep. So I think what's very interesting about the pharmacology of this product, I'm a scientist, I took this job because of my understanding of the pharmacology of this product, and most things natural on the market, well, a lot of things that are natural on the market don't do anything for you. Kava really does do something for you, which has pros and cons. But this is a product that has a multimodal pharmacological effect on the body that can reduce anxiety. So it has the same drug target as the drug Xanax that people talk about. It's an MAO inhibitor. So it has a Xanax-like effect. People call it nature's Xanax. But it's also GABAergic. So when you drink a glass of wine, that's your GABA system turning on, your inhibitory neurotransmitter system turning on. So it's a GABAergic drink as well. So it's got the similar effect, and it plays a similar role in the Pacific to alcohol, relaxing at the end of the day, but it has the additional benefit of a benzodiazepine type pharmacology in the brain, which means that it has other effects in terms of clinically reducing anxiety. And it's not just something we say, there's a significant body of clinical evidence that proves that. So kava is as effective as benzodiazepines in clinical trial settings for people that have mild to moderate anxiety. There's a large number of randomized controlled trials that show that. So it's a drink, but it has a therapeutic benefit. And our success of late has really been about repositioning from something which is competing with competing with pharmaceuticals to be something that's really an alcohol alternative. This is a massive market. So those of us who are over 50 probably don't understand quite how little appetite for alcohol the younger generations have. So about 1/3 of people now under the age of 30 don't have alcohol as part of their lifestyle. We think the coming generation underneath that is even more averse to alcohol. There's a number of reasons for that. I think a lot of people say, is this because there's a lot of cannabis available on the market? But this trend persists in the UK, it persists in Australia, it persists all through Europe in places where there is no access to legal cannabis. So it's about people wanting to have what they call a lifestyle of health and sustainability. Health is the new wealth. A lot of young people would rather have the great body and the Instagram photo rather than the Lamborghini to show how wealthy they are. So health is wealth, and we think this is growing. And that's really has fed this category, which is the no-low alcohol category. It's a massive growing category. What we're trying to do is to pioneer what we think of as the second generation of no-low alcohol products. So most non-alcoholic products are just beers, wines, gin-flavoured cordials that have had the alcohol removed from them. They don't do anything for you. So we think a functional non-alcoholic beverage that actually gives a therapeutic benefit, makes you feel relaxed and chilled out, but doesn't have any of the calories or the negative side effects of alcohol is a massive opportunity. So we've got a couple of brands. Fiji Kava is our primary brand. You can see our powdered drinking kavas there, as well as our Noble Kava tablets. We also sell quite a bit of merchandise in the tourist channel in Fiji. And our ready-to-drink brand that we just launched in Australia 3 months ago is called Taki Mai. Taki Mai is a cold-pressed kava juice. So our unique supply chain allows us to get fresh kava out of the ground, not dried kava, and we cold-press that into a pure juice. You find that one in the vitamin aisle of Coles on special this week for half price. But really, what we've been going through in the business has been a digital transformation over the last 12 months. We ended our relationship with Chemist Warehouse, which was impossible to make profitable. You'll see a lot of companies do these deals with Chemist Warehouse. Very few of them can make it work. And we focused on becoming an e-commerce driven business, primarily through social, and we've had some reasonable success at doing that. We've grown the business from around about $3,000 a day worth of sales to around about $19,000 at the moment. We're the #1 instant kava product on Amazon, do about $4,000 a day in Amazon in the US. We have cemented a relationship with Walmart, where we use the Walmart.com digital platform to feed Shopify in the US. And we've really just started 3 or 4 months ago our Shopify USA channel. So Shopify is basically your own storefront, which is significantly more profitable than the Walmart or Amazon channels, as you don't have to pay fees to those big guys. We dominate the Australian market. It's not a massive market in Australia, but we are the leading player here. We sell about $350,000 a month here in Australia. We have a very high return on advertising spend. So it means we put $1 in the top of the funnel in Australia on any given day with primarily Facebook and Instagram and TikTok ads. We take $4 out of the bottom of that funnel. The credit card gets scanned. We don't ship a product until we've been paid. So the cash to cash cycle is really excellent compared to dealing with long payment terms from retailers. And we're now focusing on building this lifetime customer value of the group of people that we've built in Australia. So we've got about 30,000 people in our database, and about 5,000 to 10,000 of those are regularly using kava instead of alcohol in their everyday life. And you can too by going to Coles and grabbing one of our new shops. And we now look at retail as being something that's complementary. So we run about $1 million worth of online ads, so people know about the product now. We've built this very high level of product awareness. So we're working with Coles now, and Coles, we announced yesterday that we've expanded our ranging to basically complete the train set for all the Coles in Australia, except for a few areas which we've excluded from that distribution due to concerns around Indigenous health. So that's the Northern Territory and the northern parts of WA and Queensland. So we've got really high levels of advertising online. We're complementing that with what's called digital out of home. So hopefully, if any of you that live in New South Wales will see some of our emojis that pop up at you and tell you, are you feeling stressed, are you feeling anxious, don't grab a beer, grab a kava. And we dominate the tourist channel in Fiji. So most people discover kava for the first time on a family holiday. It's a reasonably affluent demographic that goes on holidays to the Pacific Islands, particularly from the US to the Pacific Islands. So we're very dominant in all the resort hotels, in all the tourist channels there. We really want Fiji kava to be the brand that people see and associate with a pharmaceutical grade, clean, high quality kava product when they first discover it and all of its benefits. So results-wise, we've been driving we turned the business around in FY23. So bottom line, we walked away from about $900,000 worth of unprofitable revenue in the Chemist Warehouse relationship and replaced that with about $700,000. So we did go backwards in FY23, but we make money from everything we do, which seems like a simple thing to say, but sometimes can be really hard. So everything we do contributes to bottom line now. We're running at around about an $8.5 million annualized run rate based on our sales in June. Our revenue across the year is going to be well over 4 million, up from 1.7 last year, and growing very fast. We've proven that the model that we can use for digitally transforming the business can work here in Australia, consolidated that on Amazon, and our next horizon for us is to move into the US in the coming year, where we think the largest part of the pie is. We've got significant competitive advantages in the US where we can flavour kava. In Australia, the regulations here don't allow us to flavour kava, so we have a powdered drinking kava which we can sell you a flavour add-on to. We've got our cold pressed juice, which has only got one ingredient, kava, nothing else in there, just a cold pressed juice. You can put that into your green juice, you can throw that into a mocktail, but we can't formulate here in Australia under the current regulations, which should change. We would like them to change. But in the US, we can sell these products everywhere. So when you think about other psychoactive and psychedelic products, things like cannabis, there are limitations on what you can do. There's all this promise around cannabis, CBD and such in the US. Kava can deliver on those promises. It was grandfathered into the dietary supplement regulations in the US at the very beginning. It's a traditionally used product in Hawaii, so it's a protected status product. We can sell in a convenience store, in a gas station, in a supermarket, in an airport. We can serve it in a bar. We can do everything that you think you would want to do with a CBD or a cannabis beverage. We can do it with kava. Plus, kava is a very safe product, doesn't have any of that potential psychosis or the issues that you have with cannabis. So really the promise of what people have thought that the CBD industry could do, kava can really deliver on those promises from a regulatory sense and from a ethical pharmaceutical sense as well. So that's the big push for us. I guess the other point for us and what makes us separate, we're the only foreign company licensed to operate in the kava industry in the Pacific. We were founded in Fiji more than a decade ago by our founder. The Fiji government gave him permission to list the company on the stock exchange, so we're the only foreign company licensed to operate in what is a protected industry for the indigenous people of Fiji. We've invested a huge amount of money into building a very protected supply chain, and we're the only company operating in Fiji at that pharmaceutical level rather than the general food safety level. So the biggest issue that we have to manage for is supply chain disruption from a weather event. So Cyclone Winston many years ago came through one part of Fiji and destroyed a lot of crops. You saw a volcano in Tonga destroyed a lot of kava when it went off as well. So we use a hub and spoke model where we source from all around the Fiji Islands, and we've been using digital technology to transform the way that we source and trace our kava, which has both a important provenance. FDA is now asking for full traceability on all the products coming into the US at the dietary supplement level, which we're able to achieve. And so we've gone to a hub and spoke model where we collect from all the major kava sourcing regions around Fiji. We cover about 91% of the kava in the ground can be brought within 24 hours to one of our collection centres, which are those little suns. Suns, not clouds. And we have a very unique model. We source green kava. The whole industry is dried kava. We source green kava, which means that we go straight to the farm gate. We buy at the highest price from the farmer. The farmer doesn't have to invest into drying or potentially lose product. And we don't use any middlemen. This is an industry that's absolutely dominated by middlemen who exploit the indigenous people. So we pay the highest price, but we have the best cost of goods. And that's basically the work that we've put in over more than a decade to build that supply chain around Fiji. And we have a very strong relationship with the Itauke Trust Fund and the Itauke Land Board, which is the indigenous land owners of Fiji. We work with them on a number of social impact projects. We have an excellent relationship with the agricultural colleges. Kava is the #1 agricultural contributor to GDP in Fiji, so it's a huge part of the economy. So we work with the kava farmers at the training level to help them to grow the kind of kava that we want, put nurseries in those colleges so that the cultivars that we want are going out into the farms. And we're putting in some programs where we do things like provide graduates with cyclone-proof kit homes in a shipping container that they can take back to the farm, become small businessmen, have an off-take agreement, build up small businesses around Fiji with the indigenous people. So huge amount of social impact. And we're digitising that supply chain. We've just completed digitising that supply chain. So we now have an app which is called Traceable. That's not a spelling mistake, that's how we call it, Traceable app. And that allows us to track the kava through its whole life. So as soon as it's collected, the collector's putting it into the app. We authorise electronic payments through a payment gateway called M-Pesa to the farmers, so they get digital payments rather than cash, which is really important for us. We track it all the way through its life cycle, and happy to say very shortly, consumers in the US and Australia are going to be able to scan a code on their product, see a picture of the farmer that grew it, see the village that grew it, see the project, okay, we're building a bus shelter here, or we're putting a water pump in here, send money down the blockchain, contribute to that. So there's a huge amount of social impact that we're doing with this digital stuff as well. So we're really way out in front of everybody else in terms of what we're doing. And we think that kava could be, you know, the next massive functional beverage. Think of it as the opposite of Red Bull. You know, what Red Bull was to energy, we think these kava drinks are going to be to relaxation and chilling out. So take a look. Go to Coles.
Well done, Pete. Did you talk about, and I missed the very start because I couldn't hear quite at the back, but did you talk about how the Fijians used to take it as a peace offering to the next village when they're in their canoe? Did you talk?
No, so kava's got a huge number of applications, from spiritual applications. So people, when I took the job, I drank a lot of kava with the chief, a lot of kava. And I had a dream about a friend of mine who passed away and had this really amazing spiritual experience. And I said, yeah, you've crossed the barrier into the spirit world with the kava. So there's a spiritual element. It's a conflict resolution element between the tribes. It's got a huge number of social benefits as well, yeah.
I like the thought of it though. They use it, you know, when they're doing negotiations, just to make everyone a little bit calmer so they can get a positive outcome. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's big business, so thank you so much. Do you want to give that one back to James for me, sir? And yes, if you leave the clicker, then the next person's got more chance than you did at the start of your discussion. All right, team, let's talk about ovarian cancer. It is one of the most difficult cancers to detect for women. Cleo Diagnostics, though, hopefully making that not the case for much longer. They're bringing to market a suite of new diagnostic tests for ovarian cancer, the first of which will be the subject of an FDA application in 2025, so not that far away. They listed in August of last year. They had a very successful IPO. Now, joining us today, you'll see on your program there, it's actually got Richard Allman listed on your program, but guess what? We are very, very lucky, because the fellow who's walking up here right now is Dr. Andrew Stevens. He is their Chief Scientific Officer, and he is one of the human beings that was in the room when this potential new drug was discovered and developed. Please make him very welcome.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And let me apologise for our CEO who had to fly to Chicago at short notice. I've been telling people he did it specifically to avoid doing this talk, so I'm going to stick with that story. Let me just skip past the disclaimer here. Cleo is a reasonably new company, and this is the space we're working in. So we're looking at new diagnostics for ovarian cancer. Now, I was telling someone before, this technology is actually reasonably mature. This arose through about 13 or 14 years of academic research before it's actually been licensed into the Cleo space. And so we have a fairly short runway to our first FDA approvals around the end of next year. We listed approximately a year ago. As you can see, we're after a fairly substantial amount of work behind the scenes, we're now starting to make some headway, which is nice. So this is what we're all about. We are bringing to market a simple blood test, which is specifically aimed at providing accurate and early diagnosis for ovarian cancer. And that's quite unique in this space, and I'll tell you a bit about ovarian cancer and a bit about their technology itself as we move forwards. But this is really Richard's summary. As I said, simple blood test, accurate early detection, which is what the space is actually crying out for. There's a very large global market here. So while we see about 300 or a little over 300,000 new cases per year, there's a further 600,000 to 700,000 women that are living with disease. There's also substantial amounts of cancer scares, if you like, where people have a growth which can't actually be diagnosed until surgery is completed. And very often it's the case that those are not malignancies. And that makes up quite a substantial portion of testing as well. And there's also recurrence testing, which I'll come to in a moment. We are very strong on supporting our technology with publication in the scientific and clinical literature. The reason for that is not only to provide the scientific validity for the community, but also to provide that evidence that the clinicians want to see to drive uptake in the market. So that's a very important part of our strategy. We have a very good intellectual property position, so we have patents granted here in Australia and in the US and pending in all other jurisdictions. We also have new provisional patents coming through the pipeline, so we're in a very good position there. And I guess really these last 2 points, there's a very clear execution strategy for us, and that's largely down to our management. So as the scientist and someone that was recently in the academic space, I'm not talking about myself, apart from the science, of course, but our management team and our board have done this before. So they've taken diagnostic tests through from research phase and into the market. So they know exactly what they're doing, and it's fantastic to work with people who have that knowledge and drive behind them. So let me tell you a little bit about ovarian cancer. This is a particularly nasty tumour type. It is the biggest killer of women. It has the highest mortality rates of any cancer. Mortality within 5 years is officially 49%, so that means women that are diagnosed today have about a 1 in 2 chance of being alive in 5 years' time. The reality is that the majority of these cancers that are diagnosed are of a particularly aggressive type, which has a 5-year survival around 25%. So 75% of those women will actually pass away within 5 years. The main problems here are, first of all, that it's very difficult to detect. So we don't have any diagnostic tools to actually diagnose ovarian cancers. There are no symptoms, and as a consequence, most of these cases are detected at a very late stage. So the cancer is quite advanced, it has spread extensively, and at that point, treatment is really about extending life. It's not about cure. There is, in the space, we use something called CA125, which is a blood-based marker, and also ultrasound. The problem here is that the specificity of that testing is quite low. So if you can see a mass on ultrasound, that's great, but you have no way of knowing whether it is a cancer or whether it is something else. And as a consequence, surgery is actually the only way to make a diagnosis. And surgery is often quite extensive, generally involves at least removal of the ovaries, fallopian tubes, often full hysterectomy, can be parts of the bowel and so on. And that is actually, that material is sent away for the pathologist to diagnose. Obviously, it's not going back in at that point. And unfortunately, up to 90% of the time, it's not actually cancer. So these women are having extensive surgeries that they don't necessarily need to have. And probably the most important one here, there's no screening for ovarian cancer. So we know if we can pick it up at an early stage, it's actually quite curable. Problem is, we almost never see it at an early stage. We know that screening works. It works for breast cancers, it works for cervical cancers, we have screening for colorectal cancers. So really what we need to make an impact on survival in this space is a screening test. So Cleo is addressing those 3 areas specifically. Our first product to market will be what we call a triage test. So that's a test that is designed to help a clinician very early on, before they go into a neurosurgeon. It's designed to help them decide whether something is likely to be benign or malignant, because those two different disease situations have very different treatment requirements. And that's really where we expect to make quite a big impact. And this is where we're talking about going to an FDA 510K application around the end of next year. And that's all on track. Now, as that progresses, we have a second test, which is to look at recurrence. So unfortunately, women with cancer, or with ovarian cancer, I should say, will recur, and that happens in almost all cases. So the idea here is not so much about long-term, about survival, but it's more about providing an earlier diagnosis of the recurrent disease so that there is a longer time to actually develop treatment options and also improve quality of life for these patients. And then the third test, and I should say the technology that underpins these tests is the same. The third test is our holy grail, which is screening. And this is where we start to talk about reducing that mortality rate, saving lives, and really making a big clinical impact. So this is our strategy in terms of rolling out these tests. As we progress through, the market size for each one obviously increases substantially. So too does the complexity of the data and the trials that we need to run. And this is why we've established this pipeline, so that we can bring our first product through to market and have revenue coming in while we're developing the next set of tests. So how does it perform? Well, this data is around the triage test, which has been validated. We've run the trials already. We have a single trial left to run, which is around developing compliance for the FDA application. So it's not a test of does it work or doesn't it work, it's merely replicating the data. These studies are where we've benchmarked the prototype performance against some other commonly used tests that compete in this space. Probably the most important one is this RMI test, okay, and we've split these into pre- and post-menopausal groups because there are different risk factors involved depending on age. But what you can see is the Cleo prototype in blue, in both cases, substantially outperforms what we do at the moment. And our accuracy here is running at 95% sensitivity, 95% specificity, which is a substantial improvement on current clinical practice. Now, one of the keys for this is early stage detection. So we need to be able to pick up these cancers when they're small and they look innocuous, and often those cancers are either missed or they're mistaken for benign disease. We also need to have that early detection, or I guess confidence in that detection, because that's going to underpin our screening test down the track. So this data was published fairly recently. This is a study with about 170 patients. This is just to show you a comparison between CA125 and ultrasound, which is standard of care at the moment, it's what the clinicians use, versus Cleo Diagnostics test with ultrasound. So basically just substituting one marker for the other. And we can actually reclassify these early stage cancer cases. So these are the small, what we call stage 1 tumours. They're still confined to the ovary. If they can be treated at this point, it's quite curable. And we're able to reclassify 90% of these cases that are missed using standard procedure. So we're very confident about what we're doing in this space. Now, screening, of course, is a very stringent process. It requires, based on statistics, it requires a 99% specificity. So 99% of the time you have to get it right. And depending on whether you're doing a population screen or you're screening a high-risk group, so women who have, for example, mutations in BRCA genes, you need somewhere between a 75 to a 90% sensitivity. So that's the ability to actually pick up the disease. The Cleo testing at the moment is running at 98.1% specificity at that 75%. So we're very, very close, or in fact, we're exceeding what we need for the population screen here already. And 97.6% specificity for the high-risk screening. So already with our prototype, we're very, very close to where we need to be for that screening test, which is 3 or 4 years down the track. So we're in an exceptionally good position in terms of the science and in terms of the development of the test. So what is it? Well, it's a simple blood test. Basically, the clinician will simply request this on a pathology slip. A small sample of blood is drawn. That blood goes to the pathology lab, it's tested, and the results come back. So this fits straight into all of the existing standard workflows that occur in a normal pathology lab and a normal clinical environment. There's nothing tricky here. We've specifically developed this test to be implemented on standard platforms worldwide. The overall operational plan is also very simple. Simple is always best, I like to think. We're basically covering off these areas. So our regulatory approach is very well developed. We now have in-house regulatory expertise. We have market access specialists over in the US assisting. Our clinical trials, so we've already implemented the FDA enabling trials. There's a trial running in the US because the FDA only likes US patients. We have a mirror trial running here in Australia as well. Our operations and manufacturing, our CEO is actually in Chicago at the moment dealing with some of the manufacturing, and that's all set to start very soon. Supply chains, IP, security and so on are all covered off. And our commercial support strategy. So we have a number of contracted organisations that are assisting with trials, reimbursement strategies for insurers and so on. So we're very well placed, and this is really a process that gets replicated across those 3 different tests now. In terms of the market, it's quite significant. So in the US, there are around 1 million operations done every year for suspected cancers. Only 22,000 odd are actually cancer. And this is the market space for our triage testing. The recurrence testing, there are obviously fewer patients who have a recurrent disease, but they get tested 6, 7, 8 times. So the market size is actually pretty similar. The big ticket items are the screening. So we're splitting screening into high-risk populations, which is a far simpler clinical trial to do. But ultimately our goal is to roll this out as a population-based screen, perhaps a regular health check, so very similar to pap smear or mammograms. You would just have a simple blood test, perhaps once a year or once every 2 years. And that's where we see this testing going. So in summary, we've got an excellent technology which is very mature, which I was told is quite an unusual thing in an early biotech space, but it's a technology that I know very well, and I like to think that I can impart some confidence in what we're doing. We've got an excellent team who know what they're doing and have done it before, which is really important. And we want to make a difference in that clinical space. So it's all about gold standard evidence. We have a very, very strategic and de-risked path to market, and we're expecting to be market ready at the end of 2025, start of 2026. We're working on this clinical implementation, market implementation, and really building that value chain so that as one test hits the market, the next one is coming through. So that is all for me, and Richard, thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thanks so much. Now, just a reminder, I'm casting eyes sideways at you, but I'm not really. Just a reminder, everyone, we have 15 minutes. We need to stick to our 15 minutes. Otherwise, they eat your leg off you at lunchtime. They're terrible, this investment community here. Love to get out to the food and talk about what they've seen. Now, guys, imagine you had a condition, perhaps like something like motor neuron disease, and it robbed you of your ability to communicate with people. Now, years and years ago, it was innovative to perhaps be able to ring a bell or maybe use an alphabet board to communicate with people. The next company up on stage is operating in a very, very different era. This is an era of EMG and eye gaze technology. It's truly incredible stuff. So I'd like to introduce you to Control Bionics. They're giving communication back to thousands of people already around the globe. Why should it be part of your investment portfolio? Would you please welcome their CEO, Mr. Jeremy Steele.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. 15 minutes, I heard the message. I will give you some background on the business. We've been in business for about 20 years, so I could talk for hours, and certainly happy to talk some more outside of this session. I've got some of my colleagues outside with our technology. You can go and see what it's about, but let me jump straight in. Obvious disclaimer, you can read it at your leisure. As I said, we've been around for 20 years and our technology is proven. It's approved by the FDA, CE mark, TGA here in Australia, and we've been growing from that base, a very small base obviously when you start a business, but many thousands of people currently use our technology around the world, and our core business continues to grow. Technology, as you would know, is a function of both creating a market but also allowing the advancement of technology to allow you to continue to do more things with more people. And so right now, as we sit today, we've made some really strong advancement in our technology over the last couple of years, and that's poised for some really fantastic growth, both in our core business, but also some opportunities to create new markets and sell solutions that will further assist people in the diagnosis and treatment of many conditions. So I'll talk about some of that today as well. So maybe just to explain EMG or electromyography, I think most people here will have had an ECG, which is measuring the electrical activity in your heart. EMG is an extension of that, which is really detecting and measuring and in our case, converting into a code the electrical signal that happens in your body. This video will give you a bit more of an explanation as to how our solution and EMG works.
At the heart of the Control Bionics product line is the NeuroNode 3.0, the latest generation of the world's leading wearable control device. The NeuroNode 3.0 connects to the user's communication device via Bluetooth and is attached to the user with the non-adhesive NeuroBand or a clinical-grade non-invasive electrode. The NeuroNode 3.0 has two built-in methods for access and activation of the user's communication device: EMG control or spatial control. When using EMG control, the NeuroNode 3.0 reads the signal associated with the activation of a muscle group from the surface of the user's skin. The NeuroNode 3.0 can be placed externally anywhere on the user's body. Two common placements are the forehead for eyebrow raise and the arm for finger and wrist flexion. The advantage of the EMG mode is that the device is advanced enough to read minor movements, or in some cases, just the intent of a movement. When using spatial control, the NeuroNode 3.0 maps its place in space, allowing the user to associate specific movement patterns to actions and activations on their communication device. The advantage of spatial control is that it allows the device to be placed over clothing and is not dependent on a specific muscle movement. Whether using EMG or spatial control, the user's activation settings are quickly and easily customized through the NeuroNode controller application that is pre-installed on their communication device. Settings in this application can accentuate intentional movement and filter out what is unintentional, making it a uniquely customizable solution for users with tremors or fasciculation. To learn more about the NeuroNode 3.0 or to schedule a demonstration with your local representative, visit us at www.controlbionics.com.
Okay, so that gives you a bit of background on EMG. So I'm wearing our NeuroNode here on my wrist, as you saw in the video. Depending on an individual's condition, they may wear it on any part of their body. So motor neuron disease is about a quarter of our customer base around the world. Individuals who can't communicate verbally or can't consistently communicate verbally are using our technology in order to generate voice. So for someone who develops motor neuron disease, completely cognitive, normal full life, and then their body starts to fail them, they're using our technology, this NeuroNode, combined with other equipment in order to operate technology. And as it said, as simple as a finger movement or even the intention of movement is enough to generate an electrical signal, which can be converted into a code through our controller app and allows you to operate a whole variety of technology, whether that be generating speech, accessing the internet, sending a text message. All of those things are possible through the technology that we've had in the market for many, many years. So just to set out the business that we're in, assistive communication, and that's what I was just talking about, the use of the NeuroNode and other technology in order to communicate, assistive mobility, which I'll talk about in a second, and then data measurement, which is our newest product, the NeuroStrip, which is really expanding the potential market for Control Bionics products and solutions. So the NeuroNode, this device, this is our intellectual property. We've got many, many years running on our global patent for this. It's effectively turning intention into operation. The market size for this business and for assistive technology that we sell into is over $1 billion annually. We're selling through direct sales channels in the US, in Australia and Japan. The US is about 70% of our business currently. We partner with speech-language pathologists who are responsible for working with individuals with these conditions. We also partner or sell into the Veterans Administration in the US, schools and hospitals, and here in Australia, we obviously work closely with the NDIS and individuals who have plans with the NDIS. Our route to market initially was through retail. We have salespeople in those three markets I talked about. But the newest part of our business is we're in discussions with European distributors to sell our device directly to them through a wholesale channel, and they will then go on and retail it themselves. We should find out in the next 4 weeks whether we're confirmed to have what is in effect a new insurance code in the US, which will give direct coverage for this device into the US. Currently, we're billing under an accessories code. Stay tuned for some more information on the impact for that, but should that get confirmed, that will be a meaningful step forward for our business, not just in the earnings, but in the recognition and the acknowledgement that this is a world-class device that delivers a superior outcome already for the many thousands of people who use it, but the opportunity globally is far more significant than what our current business is today. Drove, this is our assisted mobility. I could spend a long time talking about this, but I've only got 15 minutes. I'd encourage you to go onto our website and see some more information, including a really interesting video that explains the benefits. But this is allowing an individual who's unable to control their wheelchair by themselves to autonomously select the room in which they want to be. For those of us who can choose to leave a room or leave a conversation, to have an ability to not have that ability is quite meaningful, and so to give it that choice back to individuals makes a significant difference to the quality of their life. That's now TGA approved. We're commencing retail operations, and in the US we have commenced the FDA application process through the support of a grant by the ALSA Association there. The third part of our product, and this is really a significant opportunity for us, is the miniaturization of the NeuroNode into the NeuroStrip, and this video will give you a good sense of the quite amazing potential for this new product.
Since 2005, Control Bionics have been improving people's lives by changing the way we interface with technology through electromyography. Introducing the NeuroStrip by Control Bionics, the universal machine for physiology, 20 years in the making. The NeuroStrip brings an unprecedented flexibility and accuracy to EMG devices. Unlike other devices that are restricted to a wrist or connected to external electrodes, the NeuroStrip weighs only 3 grams, is as easy to apply as a Band-Aid, and can be placed at almost any point on the body. It is so sensitive that it can detect signals before there is even movement associated with the muscle contraction. The physiological signal is transferred through conductive segments of the electrode patch to the NeuroStrip electrode array. Measured in the mere millionths of a volt, the signal is transferred via best-in-class circuitry to 3 DSPs for multiprocessing, allowing high-fidelity real-time data to be transmitted wirelessly to the NeuroStrip app. The NeuroStrip's direct-to-skin, full-spectrum, and unrivaled fidelity output means it has universal application across a wide variety of fields, including rehabilitation, sports science, wearables, and medical industry. It gives voice and mobility to those without. It offers athletes unprecedented insights into their performance, allowing them to optimize training to improve muscle function and enhance their recovery. It facilitates more targeted, engaging, and effective rehabilitation treatments than ever before. It can provide the data to train AI models for the monitoring and diagnosis of medical conditions. It can even make work more productive and make play more fun. In fact, it's so easily integrated into other systems that all its applications are yet to be discovered. In an era that is transforming how humans interface with technology, the NeuroStrip is redefining how we connect, operate, and interact with intention.
So this is a really, really interesting product. It opens up the possibility of a number of new markets for Control Bionics. We launched this towards the end of last year. And to be honest, I've had more interest from more interesting sectors than I thought was possible. And so really for us at the moment, we're sifting through where is the best way for us to monetize this technology. We already have an existing customer going through customer trials in the US, a jump clinic in Utah called NeuroBounce. They train volleyballers and basketballers to increase their jump height. I was in Utah a month or so ago going through the training camp. It's quite extraordinary how using our EMG technology can increase the height with which a basketballer can jump. To be clear, I'm not a basketballer, but the best outcome they've got so far is an increase of 8 inches in jump height through the use of our technology in their program. That's pretty meaningful if you're a basketballer. It's less meaningful for me, but it was still a really good experience. But that's only one. We've got some really interesting opportunities in rehab and biofeedback, movement disorders, so Parkinson's. If you've experienced Parkinson's, there's a lot of tremors involved. How you manage medication and how you assess the performance of medication is done through EMG. So there's a number of opportunities we're exploring. Retail or kind of commercialization and sales of that will commence in the coming months. And I think you'll see a lot of really positive news come out of Control Bionics as we start to get this product out into market. There really isn't competition for us in this. We've recently lodged a provisional patent on this technology. EMG does exist, but the lightweight, Bluetooth, wireless, flexible electrode that you saw, you put on like a Band-Aid, is without comparison in the market. Our business is growing, we generate revenue, we have existing customers, we have products that are approved by regulators, we have insurers across the world who fund us. So we're a business that generates revenue and has existing customers, and it continues to gain traction year on year. I think the best signal of that is today we've just announced that North Star Impact Fund up in New South Wales have just committed $500,000 as a strategic investment into Control Bionics, the first of what I would hope to be more investors that come on board that recognise that as a business there's a significant opportunity for shareholders and for our customers to benefit from the technology that we have today and we've had for years, but also the opportunities for growth moving forward. We've got a great team in place. You've got a few of them here. Shannon, our CFO, and Alex, who's our Australian sales manager. We've got a booth outside. I encourage you to come out and see our technology live. This isn't an idea. This is something that works. We've got a really good board and some very committed investors. I think this is a great opportunity for someone who would like to invest in a business that's been around, that has customers, and has some very significant growth opportunities. Look forward to seeing you outside and always happy to take questions offline. I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Real good. If I had a prize, Jeremy Steele, I would give it to you for precision. Well done. Thank you so much, sir. Right, up next we have natural killer T cells. Sounds like a movie title, doesn't it? It's not. It's actually a cell therapy platform to fight cancer. It's being designed by Arovella Therapeutics, whom this guy is a key member of. This is Dr. Michael Baker. He is the CEO and Managing Director. He's passionate about creating life-changing medications for the betterment of humankind and making sure we all have access to them. Would you please make him very welcome?
Wonderful. Thank you very much for the introduction. I appreciate that. And thank you very much to everybody for taking the time out of their busy schedules to be here today. I'm very much looking forward to taking you through our iNKT cell platform and how we're using that initially to target blood cancers and then moving into solid tumours. For those of you that don't know us already, we are listed on the Australian Stock Exchange under the ticker ALA. I will make forward-looking statements, so please do take a good read of the disclaimer. And I'll jump straight into the key highlights of what we're trying to achieve. As we just noted, we're working on what are called invariant natural killer T cells, which is a mouthful, and we abbreviate that to iNKT cells for short. And we're using those to target initially blood cancers and then solid tumours. Sorry about that. So our lead product is called ALLO-101, and we're aiming to take that into clinical trials in fiscal year 2025, which is where we are today. So very excited about taking that into clinic. We see that will be a transformative event for the company. And in terms of the cell therapy sector, some of you may already have familiarity with CAR T and things like this. So it is now clear that that's going to be an important parameter or modality for treating different forms of cancer, but there are still some very key limitations, and we do believe through our iNKT cell platform, and I'll show more about this, we believe it alleviates many of those challenges which are currently facing the sector. So in terms of our team, we've built a phenomenal group of individuals that have a deep amount of experience working with cell therapies and drug development broadly. We now span both Australia and North America. In terms of how we've built the company, intellectual property is absolutely critical for us, and we have a very strategic acquisitive mindset. So we look to either bring a new IP that enhances our platform in its current form or also broadens its utility. And last but not least there, so we think for all those reasons and the fact that we are one of a handful of companies globally working on iNKT cells, that we are still very well positioned for growth. So I'd like to just go through some of the information around our financials. We're currently valued at just over 170 million. We finished the quarter just gone with $12.7 million cash in the bank. That's enough money for us to reach some very key inflection points for us around taking our lead program into clinic, to start dosing patients and start collecting data. So very comfortable with our cash position at the moment. Very happy with our shareholder registry as well. So we've got a lot of institutional great investors, but also high net worths that have been very supportive of the company. And of course, I think over the last 18 months or 2 years or so, we have seen quite a strong appreciation in the share price off the back of doing what we said we were going to do. And we look forward to continuing to do that to create more shareholder value moving forward. Now, in terms of where the cell therapy sector sits in the space, I just alluded to that a moment ago, that it is very important in the sector for cancer treatment. So what I've highlighted here is a number of what we call early stage cell therapy transactions. Now, I won't go through them all, but just to point out, the majority here are either early stage preclinical, phase 1 or phase 1B, and one phase 2. But what we often see is for those, whether it's an acquisition or a partnership or a research collaboration, there's an upfront fee or payment to the company in excess of US $200 million. And I will highlight one that took place in December last year, so quite recently. Again, phase 1B, AstraZeneca acquired Gracell, and that was a $1 billion cash upfront acquisition with $200 million in milestones. So why that's important for us, again, it just signifies how important this sector is to pharmaceutical companies moving forward. Now, in terms of how we position ourselves and our strategy, so the intellectual property in the form of often of patents is key for us. That's often the currency of a biotechnology company. And we licensed our core platform from Imperial College London, which is consistently ranked a top 10 university globally. And we've expanded by bringing what we call an armoring technology, which strengthens the cell platform again, and we'll use that for our solid tumor programs moving forward. And we've also licensed in what we call a novel CAR, and I'll explain what that is in a moment, but essentially that helps us use the platform. In this case, it's to target a solid tumor in the form of gastric cancer, but also with the potential for pancreatic cancer as well. So we overlay that with good regulatory strategy. So there are frameworks by the FDA in the US, the TGA in Australia, which provide pathways to either get products approved faster or you can gain market exclusivity and so forth. So we'll explore all those pathways where relevant. And for cell therapy, it's quite a complicated therapeutic to manufacture. So there are numerous steps. It's a living therapeutic. And what the net result of that is we generate a lot of know-how, which becomes Arovella's internal trade secret, which we'll naturally protect very carefully. So in terms of how do we actually get from inception to patient, what we do is we start off with what we'd like to acquire, the technology. We usually license that from a university or research institution. It either has or we generate preclinical information that supports ongoing development. We manufacture one raw material, which we use for the genetic modification of the cells called a lentivirus. And then we go through the manufacturing step to produce the cells. Once we've done that, then we're able to take our lead program, in this case ALLO-101 for leukemia and lymphoma, into clinical trials. Now, the reason the manufacturing step is highlighted there in purple is we announced quite recently that we've defined the process development and scale-up strategy to take this therapeutic into clinic, which was a huge milestone for the company. That means we're no longer in a research institution. This is now in a commercial manufacturing environment. And why that's important is for our second program, which is we're using to target gastric or pancreatic cancer. It means, yes, we've licensed the technology. We are currently generating the preclinical information. Once we're happy with that, we'll generate the lentivirus. This manufacturing process largely will stay the same. So that manufacturing process can be used for any product we have moving forward. And as I said a moment ago, we are very acquisitive and we are always looking for new CARs to enable us to target a range of different cancer types. And again, we'll use the same manufacturing process. So going back to CAR-T, as I said, this is where the field started. The way it worked in these cases and still works is the therapy is actually taken from human blood. So the patient that actually has the leukemia or lymphoma, their blood is taken, their T cells are collected. For those of you that don't know, they're like the soldiers in our immune system that run around and eliminate things that don't belong. And then they actually get genetically reprogrammed and then given back to that patient. So the trouble we have with that is it's every time we like to use this therapeutic strategy, it's made for that individual. So it's one for one or bespoke. Naturally, that causes huge costs. It's usually about $800,000 Australian per dose. It takes 4 to 6 weeks to manufacture, so it's quite complex. Now, if you're taking the cells from a person that's got cancer and they've seen chemotherapy, the chances are their T cells aren't doing that well. Not all collection centres will actually be able to do this, so patients could be eligible to take the therapy and they will miss out. And as I said, it takes 4 to 6 weeks or so to manufacture, so patients can die while their therapy is actually being manufactured. And lastly, because it's being made for every person every single time, there's always the risk of a manufacturing run failure, which again increases complexity and cost. So Arovella's solution is we work on a different immune cell, and we didn't invent the immune cell, we're the ones that worked out how to work with it, and it's the invariant natural killer T cell. So the idea being we're able to take the cells from a healthy donor, we still do the genetic reprogramming of these cells, but then we're able to give that batch to multiple different patients. And that's game-changing for the field and something we're committed to do. And knowing that if we've got that stored in a freezer, patients would likely be able to get access to that in less than a week after demonstrating they're eligible to take the therapy. So as I said, what enables us to do this? It's the use of a very specific immune cell, the iNKT cell. As I said, we didn't invent it. Millions of years of evolution have done that for us. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, CAR-T has dominated the field. CAR-NK was also trialled quite extensively. But it's the iNKT cells in the middle that we care most about. And there's a range of reasons why. They have the ability to work in what we call the innate and the adaptive immune systems, which means they are fast acting but have a longer term response. We can give them from one person to another safely. Now that's unlike other immune cells. They don't cause graft versus host disease, and we're very comfortable with that. That's been shown not by us but others in clinic. They actually have multiple killing mechanisms. They naturally target and kill some cancers already, and they can kill like a T cell and an NK cell. And there's a range of other properties I won't go through today, but please feel free to come and talk to me more, that we think set them up really well for the treatment of solid tumours. So just in terms of commercial dynamics, as I said, we were very clear here. We didn't want to be in the T cell side of things, nor the NK cell side. This is a snapshot of the companies in both. There are hundreds of companies, up to thousands of clinical trials ongoing in both sides, versus the iNKT cell sector. Today, as of today still, there are only 6 companies working on iNKT cells globally for cancer treatment. So with our acquisition approach of bringing in new IP, we also sit as one of the most differentiated iNKT cell companies worldwide. And with that recent announcement about our manufacturing, we've done a lot, and it looks like it could also be industry leading in terms of the ability to manufacture these for treatment of cancer patients. So in terms of our manufacturing, as I said, I just want to unpack this a little bit more. So the way we do it is we find suitable healthy donors, we isolate their iNKT cells, Now we have that one raw material that I mentioned called a lentivirus that carries the genetic material to essentially modify the cells so they produce now what's called a CAR. And as I mentioned, for those of you that don't know this space well, think of those as guided missiles on the surface of the iNKT cells. They drag the immune cell to find the cancer cells and trigger their elimination. And then they get grown into billions before being vialed and stored frozen, ready for use. So I won't go through all the numbers on the bottom left here, but as I said, we're fairly comfortable. This is now, if not, it's very close to being industry leading. And we believe we could also leverage designations that are being put in place by the FDA called platform designations, which will give us additional benefits. And any time we would like to change or go after a different cancer, all we need to do is change the lentivirus, and we'll be back using the same manufacturing process, giving us another product to take forward for a different cancer type. So just to give you some context on ALLO-101, our lead program, we use animal models initially to test if these are going to be suitable. And what we're looking at here is a mouse model where anywhere you see the color, the red, blue, green, any color there, that's the tumor cells in the animals. And then we're looking here after 3 days of treatment with a range of different treatments: salt water, unengineered T cells, so no missiles, unengineered iNKT cells, again, no missile, CAR T, which has already been shown to be curative for some patients, and then ALLO-101, our therapy in the last column. So what we're hoping to see there is loss of color. And I think it's quite clear that there's enormous elimination of cancer cells through our iNKT cell therapy. And great that it works after 3 days, but we're far more interested in what happens longer term. So what we're looking at on the bottom is what we call a survival curve. So if all the animals were to stay alive, the line would run across the top. As an animal dies, it steps down. And what we're looking at now is from 0 to 90 days. And what you can clearly see is many of the control groups, the animals die between 40 to 60 days. The CAR T data is excellent. So again, these ones are already approved in the market. But we see for the iNKT cells, it is superior with about 95% of the animals alive after 90 days. So where are we at the moment for that program? It's ALLO-101. We're aiming to take that into clinic quite soon. We have already finalised the clinical trial protocol synopsis, so we know what the clinical trial looks like. We've got physicians and key opinion leaders engaged that are wanting to be involved in the trial. And now we're going to make the GMP material before completing what we call IND enabling studies, and then writing all that up in the form of documentation to take to regulators, and then we'll get their approval to start phase 1. Now, in terms of our pipeline, so as I've just gone through, ALLO-101 is our lead program to target what we call CD19 producing lymphomas or leukemias, ALLO-105, which we're using to target gastric cancer, and then I haven't talked about it today, but we've got an armoring technology, IL-12TM, which will be integrated into our solid tumor programs. And so importantly, what's coming up next, a major goal for ALLO-101 is to complete the manufacturing of the therapeutic to GMP standards, completing those IND enabling studies, and then getting all the ducks in a row to start phase 1. And as I said, just importantly, we are funded to get to that point, start dosing patients and start collecting data. And we expect throughout the pathway for this to happen, there'll be a number of news flow announcements to come forward. For ALLO-105, key goal is to generate proof of concept data, optimize that missile so it's as good as we want it to be before generating animal data, and then commencing the formal manufacturing for that process we've just defined. And then IL-12TM, as I said, will integrate that into that program. And in terms of pipeline expansion, we are continuing to scour the globe for new CARs or missiles that will fit into our platform. So with that, I'd just like to summarise. So I think I'm very clear that we've got a wonderful novel iNKT cell platform. It provides improved manufacturing and logistics. We know that iNKT cells have multiple anti-cancer properties that other immune cells don't. We're very excited to take our lead product into clinic. We continue to expand the platform, and as I've just mentioned a moment ago, we're very comfortable that we are still well positioned for growth. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you very much for your attention and look forward to answering some questions over lunch.
Well done, Dr. Baker. Thank you so much, sir. Hey, have any of you interested in investing in the digital and the cryptocurrency space at all? Are you doing it? Show of hands. A couple of us. You're going to be very interested, those of us that haven't, in this next presenter. This is CEO of DigitalX, Lisa Wade. She is going to make many things a lot clearer to you and introduce you to an Australian first as well. Please make her welcome.
Thanks very much, everybody. We're going to shift gears a little bit. I think that DigitalX is one of the most exciting little microcaps in Australia, and I'm going to tell you why today. One thing I did learn yesterday, we did a run of this conference in Sydney, and I learnt that 15 minutes is not really a very long time to explain a company to somebody, especially a company that's as sort of different as ours. Now, what makes us different? First and foremost, we are the only Australian listed company to hold Bitcoin in our treasury on our balance sheet. Now that, to me, makes us a financial company of the future. Why did I leave National Australia Bank and come to lead DigitalX? It was purely and simply because we are building the financial rails of the future, and the technology that DigitalX and Bitcoin and all of the subsequent cryptocurrencies sit on are the financial rails of the future. Every company that's presenting here today needs financial rails. Therefore, we're providing the infrastructure for every company. And from my point of view, and what we said when we rang the bell at the ASX 2 weeks ago, when we launched our Bitcoin ETF, it was truly the merging of two worlds. There's our new financial world of Web3, which I'll go into in more detail. And then there was us putting BTXX, the People's Bitcoin ETF, onto the stock exchange. Really created, I think, an intersectional opportunity for Australians to start to understand these new financial rails that will start to emerge as we progress into the future. Now, a little bit about us. At the 30th of June, share price was 5.6 cents, 42 million market cap, and our net assets, which is a very important number for us because that's one of the ways we generate revenue. We run a funds business. I'll go into that in a little more detail in a minute. And so that net asset value is very important. Now, something to understand about our stock, which will make it quite simple to remember, is that we are very, very, very highly positively correlated, like 0.92. Sorry, I'm a finance geek. That's highly, and you would all know correlation. That's highly correlated
occasions when it was poked into people, and it went up in many, many, many ways. So we're going to talk about a little drug now called monopentol, and it is the property of PharmAust. This is Dr. Michael Thurn strutting up here. Look at that. Come on. This is an awesome drug that these guys have got, and if they are able to prove its efficacy and it does what they say it's going to do, what they hope it's going to do, it will make such big changes. We heard earlier on about the voice actor, or the communication device that one of our companies has, you know? I had a friend that passed away from that disease. Now, maybe if this drug had been around and could have extended his life, that would have been even better. So please listen to Dr. Thurn, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Chrissy. So we'll start on this slide. This is just a corporate overview, common slide that everyone presents, but there's some significance in this slide that I just want to focus on. One of the significance is that we've just had a complete board refresh in the last quarter, and we finished the last quarter with a very healthy $10 million in the bank. And since then, that $10 million was largely brought about through a placement that was completed in June, prior to the end of the quarter. But since then, we've gone on and raised another 7.8 million through a share purchase plan. And that share purchase plan was from obviously existing shareholders. So it gives you an indication of the support that the company has found through their existing shareholders. So as a result, we now have a pretty healthy bank balance, close to 18 million, but we've also got another 1 million that's coming in, roughly, at our AGM, that's subject to approval by our shareholders through directors and management participating. So that's roughly $1 million. So a very healthy bank balance to support the next phase of development that PharmAust is undertaking. So what does PharmAust do? So PharmAust is heavily entrenched in neurodegenerative diseases. And the way that we treat neurodegenerative diseases is through a process called autophagy. And autophagy is a natural cleaning mechanism that all cells possess, all mammalian cells possess. So how we're using it in neurodegenerative diseases is to clean up the metabolic waste, the toxic buildup of proteins that's associated with Alzheimer's disease, it's associated with Huntington's disease, Parkinson's disease. All those diseases have a buildup of toxic protein in their neurons that leads to degeneration and the symptoms that occur. The one that we're focusing on initially is motor neuron disease, or in this case, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis is the major form of motor neuron disease. And in some ways that represents the low-hanging fruit. And I'll explain what that means in a couple of minutes. So we're targeting amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. And we recently completed a phase 1 study that was very successful. That phase 1 study was able to show that we have excellent long-term safety and tolerability of our drug, and our drug is called monopentol. And monopentol is a repurposed veterinary drug. Because it's repurposed, we know that from an animal safety point of view, that the drug is very safe. And that was confirmed in our phase 1 study. Great safety and tolerability profile. The other aspect of monopentol is that it's currently marketed by Elanco. Elanco produces it on a 100-ton scale. So again, it gives you confidence that this drug is very easy to manufacture and can be potentially made available commercially very easily. The next aspect that we're able to show in that phase 1 study was that we were able to see promising early signs of efficacy. And one of the reasons why we were able to see those early signs of efficacy was because the patients were on the drug for up to a year in that phase 1 study. Patients with motor neuron disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, their average life expectancy is 27.5 months. The patients that entered our study, the time since diagnosis, onset of the disease, was well and truly close to that that 2-year timeframe. So we've had patients on that drug, 12 patients, 9 here in Victoria, 3 in New South Wales, have participated in that study. They've continued in that study past the 12 months onto a compassionate use program and are now been rolled over into an open label extension study, those patients. The data that we generated from that phase 1 study, we presented to the FDA, and that was enough to get the FDA over the line for an orphan drug disease designation. Important milestone for the company, important from the point of view of being able to attract big pharma. The other great announcement lately was our acceptance into the Healy platform trial. And the Healy platform trial is the trial for motor neurone disease or ALS in the world. It's a platform trial where it offers the opportunity for your drug to be accelerated through the development process to potentially receive accelerated approval from the FDA, but in our situation, the potential to be potentially on the market in 2026. So a short development timeframe. To back that up, we've got a strong IP position around the method of use of monopental in motor neurone disease. We'll talk about the board in a minute. But the other aspect on this slide that I want to emphasise is that from the original slide, I mentioned that the company is focused on neurodegenerative disease. We're now exploring the opportunity for monopental to be useful in those diseases through preclinical models. So that's something to look forward to over the next 4 to 6 months. Just quickly on the board, we've had a total refresh. Like I said before, this total refresh has been all about the journey that the company is on. That journey is that we hope to be in a position in 12 to 18 months' time where we're an attractive target for a larger pharmaceutical company. Obviously, to get there, the clinical development, the manufacturing, the exploration into looking at monopental's use into other neurodegenerative diseases, we've built a formidable management team to guide the program through those various activities. And this is probably the most important slide in the slide deck, because what it does is it really emphasises how we are differentiated from most of the other biotech offerings that you will be presented with. How are we differentiated? Most companies go through phase 1, they do 2 phase 2s, and then they do 2 phase 3s. We have an opportunity after our phase 1 study that we recently completed and showed excellent results to just do 1 more study. That 1 more study is an adaptive phase 2-3 study. That adaptive phase 2-3 study is roughly going to be in about 200 patients. Those 200 patients after 48 weeks gives us an opportunity to potentially get accelerated approval and potentially full approval from that 1 study. Not many biotechs are in that position, just to do 1 more study after phase 1 to be in a position to get accelerated approval. Remember before, repurposed drug. Safety and tolerability in animals, that's 1 aspect of any regulatory dossier that you file to the FDA. That's already been ticked off. Manufacturing, you can manufacture this on a ton scale. That's been ticked off. The only thing left for us is to show in that phase 2/3 study that we see same tolerability that we were seeing before in our phase 1 and the same kind of efficacy readouts. A little bit about the key statistics behind motor neurone disease. I think this is one of the most confronting aspects about motor neurone disease, is that there's such a poor treatment options available to people with motor neurone disease. There's 3 drugs that are currently approved for motor neurone disease, or ALS. Tofersen received accelerated approval. These drugs have because they're treating a rare disease, there is precedent around getting accelerated approval. A good example of that is Tofersen that received accelerated approval last year. It only treats around about 300 patients because it treats a rare genetic mutation in the SOD1 gene. Most of the other treatments, roluzole and radicavir or edavarone, they treat the majority of patients with motor neurone disease or ALS. The other key aspect on this slide is that edavarone, to be on edavarone, you have to pay $173,000 US. So these aren't cheap drugs. They're expensive drugs, but they only prolong life by a small number of months. So the best drug, edavarone, only 6 months, $173,000 US. Motor neurone disease, talked about it before, a toxic buildup of protein. We have a mechanism in place of removing that toxic buildup of protein through autophagy. Our drug stimulates autophagy to remove that toxic buildup of protein. We're hoping that we can replicate the results that we see in motor neurone disease to Alzheimer's and some of the other more prevalent neurodegenerative diseases. Our phase 1 study. Our phase 1 study, as I mentioned before, 12 months. Patients went on a number of doses of monopental. They dose escalated up to the maximum dose of 10 milligrams per kilogram a day. Then they went on to a compassionate use program. Now they're on an open label extension study. We'll provide continuous readouts on that open label extension study, because the important thing about that open label extension study is that patients are on the top dose, 10 milligrams per kilogram. The results that we reported, presented to the FDA, presented to Healy to get into the Healy platform trial, were based on a number of different doses. We're at the top dose now. We're giving the drug and the patients the best possible benefit from that drug. Side effects. We talked about it before. It's been used in animals for a long time. Those safety and tolerability aspects that were observed in animals were replicated in humans or in the clinical study that we did. This is 12 months. So we've had 12 patients on drug collectively for 18 and a half years. 18 and a half years, patients have been exposed in total, in summation, to monopental. We've only seen three adverse events. And this was the results, the key results that came out of the phase 1 study. And in the phase 1 study, it was all about reducing the rate of progression of the disease. And what we were able to do, because we are dealing with a rare disease, it's unethical early on in clinical development to have placebo group because the life expectancy is so short. We have the ability to compare back to a natural history database. And by comparing back to a natural history database, matching our patients to patients in that natural history database, we're able to show that we significantly slow the decline of progression of motor neurone disease in our patients. And then there's the other add-ons, the other secondary measurements that are important to patients, particularly with motor neurone disease, the quality of life. Was there any difference in quality of life over the 12 months? A 5% decrease. Excellent result. The other aspect is cognitive decline. That gives us some insight into, is this going to be potentially useful in Parkinson's or Alzheimer's disease? In these patients, we saw hardly a decrease over the 12-month period. And the last one there, and the most important one, is most people tend to die, they do die, with motor neurone disease of respiratory paralysis. Over the 12 months, we saw a small decline in respiration and slow vital capacity. Good results. More recently, we reported on survival. Survival compared to the PROACT database, and we saw highly statistically significant results. Now, there's a number of curves there, and just to show you that we didn't cherry pick the data. By that I mean we took the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. And even on both those scenarios, our p-values are highly statistically significant. We're having a monopental, and the 12 patients that we analysed are having, compared back to the matched controls in that PROACT database, is having a significant effect on prolonging their life. And just really to finish up, 2 slides to finish up. To be selected in the Healy platform trial is a major achievement. It's a major achievement because we did it on 12 patients. 12 patients. They said our data was good enough to get into the Healy platform trial on 12 patients. All the other drugs that have been selected in the Healy platform trial, which there have been 7. So the way that the Healy platform trial has been set up is that 2 very smart neurologists, Professor Kudzowitz and Professor Paganoni, recognised that there needed to be a way of progressing promising candidates through fast-tracking them through development through the FDA. They have a direct line into the FDA. So whenever results come out of the study, they're able to be recognised by the FDA, but also be recognised in a way that permits accelerated approval. That's why they set up the study. There's been 7 drugs to date tested in this Healy platform trial. We're number 8. So very, very important event for the company. We're looking to start that trial with the Healy platform at the end of the year. We'll just finish up here, just some catalysts. So we had a major quarter that's recently been completed, orphan drug designation, the Healy platform trial, great survival data around the patients that have been on the drug. And then this second half, where we're really setting ourselves up for success. We've de-risked the program by being accepted into the Healy platform trial. We're starting the Healy platform trial at the end of the year. We've refreshed the board in order for us to be in a position to be a target for a large pharmaceutical company. Any questions, please do not hesitate to come and see us at the booth outside. But thank you, Chrissy.
Look, he's looking at me sheepishly. He knows he's taken 2 minutes of your valuable lunchtime. Do you think that was worth sitting through 2 minutes of your lunchtime? Yes, you're getting a big applause. Well done, Dr. Thurn. Thank you very much, sir.